Good Carja agus fáilte go gá podcast. Welcome to the second episode of Mhór. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by another very good Republican man from the north side of this small island. It's the based Irish Republican. Based, or we can call him Ryan. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fine, John. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you on. It's an absolute pleasure. Based, much like Eamon, one of my best friends I've met on Twitter, my short time on Twitter. We've had loads of discussions about, Irish unity, about just general what it's like to grow up in Belfast, and he's a really interesting, insightful guy, and I'm really looking forward to what this podcast today is gonna interrail. So, Base, do you wanna tell the audience a little bit about yourself and get the ball rolling?
I am a very influential nobody. At this point, I like to think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People will attack my Twitter account nowadays and say, "Oh, you in that Twitter account, or you in this here," and I was like, I am shit posting. Basically, what I say to them. I am on there. I am sharing things I find funny. I find controversial. Sometimes I'll share things where people just come on and argue with me about it or give me their side of the story.
Yeah.
Yes, we live in a world today where having a Twitter account, having online media where you share something, and if it isn't socially accepted, then you're public enemy number one, and that's the way Facebook is. That's the way many other things are. Twitter is probably the last bastion for people having internet freedoms, like I would say,
Yeah.
in the Western world. For sure, it's like when we were growing up, you had Reddit and YouTube, and you had like PlayStation lobbies, and people had Xbox lobbies and stuff, and talk about freedom of speech. You had loads of freedom of speech in them.
Maybe too much.
And them online, in them online arenas, you have a lot of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But as you see now, like all that's getting taken away, and it may be from a young man's perspective, like, but even like the new Call of Duty, it has voice chat turned off by default. Grand Theft Auto's the same thing. They don't want people to speak, even in our entertainment media nowadays. For majority young people, they don't want people to communicate. Everything's very antisocial nowadays, even with social media. Even though it's antisocial by nature, but it became even more antisocial than it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. You've raised some really interesting points there. So you kind of spoke a bit in free speech there. When you see laws like for example, that's being imposed down here in the south, like the hate speech bill, and how the Hate Crime Act got passed in Scotland recently, does this really sort of scare you that in our time on the Anglo-Celtic or British/Irish Isles, that sort of free speech is very much under attack in the Western world, as you say? Do you think this is a genuine threat, or just what's your kind of overarching thoughts on that, on those acts and bills?
In the Western world, if you're talking about, I don't know, so I've heard some people call what is normally known as, like you called it, the British Hibernian Isles or whatever.
Anglo-Celtic.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even I've heard like terms I used to use Western Europe, but
you could say that.
Have to include. Yeah, you kind of have to include France into that. Fuck them guys, like, it's my kind of opinion.
Yeah.
Fuck French. Don't like them. No, they're the one group of people in Europe you can't really pick, like, is the French.
Yeah.
But no, we're joking. No, listen. I would say that's part of the world. Britain and Ireland. We never really had freedom of speech to begin with, anyway. It's an American concept, freedom of speech. It's not indicative to European society, not that I can think of. Maybe, to be fair, some of the French, they started a lot of freedom of speech back in the day, during their revolution, but now they went completely off of that. They went in the extreme. Now they say you can't wear a burqa swimsuit. So that kind of goes on the opposite of it. I don't think Ireland or Britain has ever had any real freedom of speech. I think you have freedom of expression, and they couldn't stop public discourse in a large way over a period of time. But there is no enshrined laws that inherently give you a God-given right to say whatever you want. There is nothing like that in British or Irish laws. Like, there is freedom of expression, but that is just expression. Like, you don't have the freedom to say whatever you want, quite literally in the UK and Ireland, you know.
Well, absolutely, and I suppose, look, when we see stuff like the hate speech bill coming into Ireland now, or at least they're trying to get it passed with some quite heavy resistance. Like, look, I think the idea behind the hate speech bill is good, because certainly we do have a bit of a, I would call, epidemic of anonymous, faceless accounts all over social media who are getting away with verbal murder, you know, really nasty abuse.
Online harassment.
Online harassment.
The best term for it.
Yeah, that'd be a good way to say it. And this is wrong, and this should stop, you know. That being said, you know, who is deciding what is and what isn't hate speech? I mean, one man's hate speech is another man's good point, you know. So I think we just have to be really, really careful when we bring in acts like this, that we're not sort of infringing on anybody's rights, or that we're not taking away the opportunity to let people speak their mind, you know what I mean?
One of my friends on Twitter, Honey Tools, she says the most right-wing things ever on acts, and I don't think she's been banned yet. You know, she spends most of her days posting music now, like, but she's an African lady from Ireland, you know, and she posts some of the worst shit ever, like, and her Twitter account isn't nearly as banned as other Twitter accounts out there, so I think they're a bit selective in who they choose to ban outright anyway.
Oh, definitely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they draw down the line, even though that she is of the right-wing mindset. I think they do look at it on a racial basis, like, of who they ban, who they don't ban. Yeah, like, there was a time, even when Twitter was back in the day, when the likes of Jack Dorsey was running it before Elon Musk took it over, that were a lot of things were censored on it. So posting a photo of let's say information about who the Bloody Sunday shooters were, the soldiers, you know, if you posted that on Twitter, that was taken down. That was public information. So that was taken down. But in the days of Jack Dorsey, and then after Jack Dorsey, you know, things like that could stay up because it was widely known information, you know. So it is weird. It is weird.
Yeah, absolutely. I've lost my train of thought there, but I was going to ask quite a good. Yes, okay, it's coming back to me. You know, and it's all well and good talking about managers of social media companies and what they can do to regulate Twitter, but the thing about the likes of the hate speech bill and the hate crime act in Scotland is that this is actually the law. This is actually susceptible to legislation and the law, and basically you could be thrown in jail for a comment that in another person's opinion could just be a decent point, you know. And I suppose this is why we've got to just listen to the bill, read the sort of mandates on it, but we should be susceptible and wary that, you know, perhaps this could be something that isn't healthy for our future, you know. So I remember very well one of our first ever Twitter spaces when I was on with you, and I remember something that you said that really resonated with me and kind of stuck with me and made me think, wow, this is a really interesting guy. This is a guy I want to get to know a bit better now. Is when you mentioned how Jerry Adams is in the World Economic Forum. Could you please tell me and the viewers a little bit about your knowledge of the World Economic Forum and why there's such a corrupt shower of underscores? Would you mind, you know, just giving a bit of insight into who the World Economic Forum is and why they pose such a threat to just your everyday Joe? Oh, his mic's on mute here. Okay.
Oh no, there's me.
No worries.
No, listen, it'll be very hard. I'll share the screen here, okay?
Okay. Now the viewers won't be able to see this, but yeah, work away.
Are you recording it, are you?
I'm recording it through my phone so the viewers can just kind of see my ugly face. But I can read out whatever you want to share if you want, or I could actually.
If I share it to my screen, then you should be able to see it.
So I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. See, look at that. See, you learn things every day, aren't you?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to show the viewers this. So viewers, I'm gonna take my phone here and this is crazy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. See, you
So
should be able to record this space. Like,
did
see if you go on and hit more and hit record. Request permission to record this on computer and request yeah.
I'll do that in future. We've started
There you go.
we've started the
That's
podcast now, so we're
that's what
gonna
you do in the future.
in
Yeah.
the future.
Anyway,
So anyway, Jerry, have you got a chance to read this based, or because this is absolutely fascinating.
this is just their website. This is just their website. This is what I tell everybody to go have a look at.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to look into it. You know, other things you will hear about them will be very sensationalized. So they'll be, you know, they want to put bugs in the food. Is usually the big one.
Yeah,
Or,
pesticides, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they kind of have done that because in a few supermarkets in the UK, you know, you'll see the odd food packet and it says it uses a type of grasshopper
Okay.
food supplement. So they use like ground up grasshopper in order to make up protein or something.
Okay, that's fascinating.
But ground up grasshopper is not a good thing to ingest because
Definitely not.
well, ingesting insects in a lot of countries it's not actually done anymore other than a form of cuisine instead of a form of diet, except for the uber poor. But what it results in doing is that it results in brain decay and you know, your neurons in your brain not working because they're decaying because you're eating bugs. I mean, I actually can't. Eating bugs are bad for you. I actually just don't even know how else to say it. Like, other than that, eating bugs it's not good for you. It doesn't matter if you cook them. Doesn't matter if you do whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a cultural thing. Eating bugs is not good for you. But listen, this is kind of the stuff that the World Economic Forum help fund. So they help fund a lot of stuff around the world. They're involved with a company called their search history is going to reveal just mod video games. So second company to look at is BlackRock.
Yeah.
And they're traded. Larry Finks started BlackRock. I didn't even know that. So if you work for a company, like let's say a big multinational company in Ireland or even the UK or America, you know, there's a 1 in 3 chance that it's going to be owned by BlackRock in some way.
Correct.
It's going to be a subsidiary, you know, and it's the same with your pensions and everything. They own 1/3 of everything on the planet, essentially. They are highly involved with the World Economic Forum. They are involved with their funding mostly, so what it takes for them to fund people. I'll just show us this here.
Do you want me to show the viewers this?
Yeah, you should be able to show the viewers this. Yeah.
No worries, not.
See if I flip this right here. ESG.
Got Mick Collins in the background, lads.
Collins in the background.
Patrick Bet David, of course, he's one of the greats. He's who I'm aspiring to be like here, to be honest.
I can't actually find the video that I was looking for, but
that's okay.
Yeah, I actually can't find the video that we're looking for.
Okay,
but he was
fine.
talking with the CEO of BlackRock, and essentially what they were discussing was ESG scores, and that means environmental, social, and governance.
Yes.
So if you are in a workplace in Ireland, you know, the Republic, the North, UK, or US, you are going to be subject to these ESG scores. That's going to be, you know, basically your whole existence. You know, any HR department.
Does this
will have to go through this.
Do these ESG scores run similarly to sort of the Chinese government's citizen scores, where, you know, if you spread this much communist propaganda, you get your left wing score up, but if you criticize the government, you go down and you could potentially then be sent to a concentration camp? Would you say it's similar to this, or are you not sure?
I would say it's similar in the sense that it's a score.
Okay.
You know, this is more products. This is to do with sales. This is to do with products and companies. This is to do with the companies and less the people.
Okay.
You know, now it doesn't mean that eventually this won't be narrowed down to people. which is what is suggested. But nonetheless, it is pretty frightening stuff when you do look at it, because this affects TV shows, video games, basic call centers, down to education. Every level and facet of society. See if it requires a HR department, these ESG scores are involved.
Okay. Interesting.
So it's a company's basically, it's an image. So the environmental is showing what it will do there, lessen resource use, emissions, increase innovation. So increasing more green efficient ways for them to be able to do business, and that makes up a part of the ESG score. So these ESG scores will go a long way nowadays to dictate how well a company is going to do financially, or its investability, by having a higher ESG score. So they're financially incentivized in order to have a high ESG score, every company and every business and every service, in order to stay consumer friendly and market friendly. That's why ESG scores are there. And the World Economic Forum helped implement these for things like green initiatives, social initiatives, and governance. So we're going to social next. So it's about workforce, human rights, community, and product responsibility. That is where you'll find a lot of the stuff coming into the workplace and into the schools and education, is from that social part.
Okay, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating, and it's quite a comprehensive answer there. Yeah, look.
That's what it is. That is what is. That's what the World Economic Forum is basically doing right now.
Yeah.
They're doing many other things, but that is one of the things that they are heavily involved in Ireland right now, and the rest of the world is the ESG scores. You're wondering why your TV shows and your video games have become more woke, and the same with your movies and all this is because of ESG scores, and that's why they have to propose that good image in order to have.
I mean, there's a famous quote from your man, the CEO, Carlos Schwab. Is that his name? Something Schwab, where he said, "You will own nothing and be happy." That is probably in a nutshell representative of what they represent and what the sort of message they're trying to portray. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Well, listen, the thing about the World Economic Forum is that, see the videos that we had 2 years ago of Klaus Schwab saying that, you can't find that online anymore.
You can't.
You go for that.
Yeah.
You can't find that. Do you know what I mean?
And there's a reason for
this.
Yeah,
there's shadow banning, and there's the same stuff that was going on during the Trump election, where they were taking down stories, and
they're trying to whitewash history. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do in China. That's what happens in China. People say, "Oh, these terrible things that happen in China. How come the public don't say anything about it?" There's not public backlash. There is, but then the media gets buried,
and they get psyoped. Yeah, the public gets psyoped in silence by the Chinese People's Party in this case, and in our case, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. I'm going to read that article by Jerry Adams as soon as possible.
This isn't even an article. This is the World Economic Forum. So this is one of their sponsored politicians. Their partner politician is Jerry Adams.
Yeah.
That's one of their guys who's one of their partner politicians.
Yeah, so...
And the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab was there for the Good Friday Agreement and everything. We didn't even know that. Before we even knew who this guy was.
Well, that's fascinating. Oh, he was part of negotiations, was he?
He wasn't a part of the negotiations, but he was there.
Wow.
He was there.
Okay.
Yeah, they are the World Economic Forum of the money man. They represent the business interests.
So okay.
The world.
So
if you wanna, people look at them as if they're communists. I would say that's, you're thinking of the authoritarianism as communism.
Yeah, it's definitely
more like extreme capitalism.
Yes.
What World Economic Forum is.
It's definitely, as you said, authoritarianism / totalitarianism. Like, it's absolutely. But in terms of their actual policies, it's very much capitalism, because you will own nothing and be happy. That's sort of what their mantra is. Yeah, look, thanks a million for that, Base, and sort of shifting the conversation forward a little bit from the World Economic Forum now. You mentioned Good Friday Agreement there. Can you talk a little bit about your honest opinions on the legacy of the GFA? and sort of the society that's shaped Northern Ireland since the GFA. So what's your sort of brief take on those two uh, main points?
Well, my family voted for the Good Friday Agreement, and so the Good Friday Agreement marks a really important chapter in Irish history.
Absolutely, it does.
Um, really, really important chapter because up until that point, there was no point in Irish history where Irishmen and women decided to stop fighting a war against the British. There was literally no point in Irish history. Now, yes, it is a small amount of Irish people that actually do decide to take on the British regime, whether it's in arms or some sort of ground support, whether they went to a pub and put in 20 quid during a singing night, or if they went and they picketed. You know what I mean? Even if they did that, people decided to stop for the first time ever in Irish history. You're talking about 800 years of conflict, realistically, on and off for them 800 years. And currently, we're at the longest sustained period of peace in Irish history. Just think about that. It's only what, 25 years or so. You know,
Mm.
that's not that long, John.
Mm.
That's really not that long of a time.
No, it's
To
not.
be
Are you
in
sure about
civil
that?
peace.
Because I guess, are you saying that there was still conflict between 1922 to 69?
Yeah, there was border campaigns.
There
There
was, to be fair.
was
Yeah. Sean
there
South and
was border.
Carry etc. Yeah, there was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah, of course.
30s, there was small campaigns. There was always something going on.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
a
true.
lot kind of a lot kind of the way now you have with dissident Republicans, where they're still doing things, but they're not making world headlines.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Um, but this is the longest sustained period of peace. Back then, even you think about the border campaign, that was even more fractured peace because you had guys who were just sitting up over the border and taking fire. Like,
Yeah,
it was pretty much like a war zone even back then as well,
absolutely, yeah.
compared to today. But to go on from that is that it's the longest period of sustained peace. So a lot of great things came with that. Ireland stopped becoming a war zone. So yes, even though the north was a war zone, that really affected the south as well. That was
Mm.
always looked on by international onlookers to be, well, the Irish Republic has an ongoing civil war in the north,
Mm.
and it affected Cavan and Monaghan and Donegal and
Mm.
Louth. They were all really, really affected by the conflict, even though they were in the Republic, because they were just over the
Mm.
border.
That's very
So they
true.
would have seen a lot of death, a lot of familial death, because they would have had relatives over the border. So if they had any relatives that died over the border, they would have felt that just as somebody living on the northern side,
Yeah.
So it's a high effect. There's a disconnect, I would say, in the Republic with the Ulster province as a whole, not
Yeah,
just Northern Ireland, the whole Ulster province. There's a big disconnect with that and the
absolutely.
struggle of people up there compared to what's going on down there. That the Good Friday Agreement, loads of people voted for that. Your parents probably voted for it at the time.
Yeah,
My parents voted for it.
yeah,
Um,
they did.
and my grandparents, I'm not sure my grandparents voted for it now, to be honest with you, because
Okay.
a lot of people didn't vote for it. A lot of people wanted to continue the conflict.
Yeah.
Wanted to see it continue onwards, because they thought that at that time, especially, they thought that they had the biggest arsenal that they had ever had ever. So they would definitely able to keep it going.
Well, of course, there was this IRA ceasefire in '94, followed by was it the ILNA attacks then after that? But the IRA did have a ceasefire in '94, like.
They had a ceasefire in '94, but then they were breaking off their ceasefire. They couldn't
Yeah.
keep their ceasefire off, is what they realized. They were like,
Yeah,
we actually can't keep people from being trigger happy.
yeah,
And then they were continuing to do operations in London in order to put pressure
absolutely.
on the negotiation table. Like, they were blowing up Canary Wharf and stuff. So they were they had a ceasefire. It just meant like no operations were going on concurrently. It just meant they weren't going out and looking for fights, essentially.
Yeah,
Is what that ceasefire meant. But do not get too off the question. It's brought a lot of good things to Ireland.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? The Good Friday Agreement basically took Ireland from a de facto third world country, which what it was during the 90s, basically, it was a de facto third world country. And it would have been no different really from the likes of Poland at the time. Like, it's
True.
only starting to get a bit of financial. People only starting to get toilets in their house. Like, let's be honest. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
indoor plumbing and for frig's sake, like things were bad coming out of the 80s and the 70s.
Definitely were.
Most of Ireland. And the Good Friday Agreement turned all of Ireland into a first world country pretty much overnight. You know? And that's why it's so developed now. You know, people look at Ireland and say, oh, it's the highest GDP, it's got the best way of life or whatever. It's because, you know, it's now a first world country. It's became a normal place, just like anywhere else in the world, where businesses want to come and interact with instead of being a place it was afraid of. So a lot of good things have come from it, but I don't think it's brought peace, is the one thing. I think it's brought an end to war, but it hasn't brought peace, because if it had brought peace, then the peace walls would be down in Belfast, but there's more up than there ever was during the Troubles.
Okay.
So there's no war, but there's not exactly peace and harmony.
And are you alluding to the rates of death by suicide as well?
That will be another major part of it. You know, the suicide thing is
it's shocking.
It's
arguably
a worldwide epidemic too. You know, but,
I was going to say that.
Particularly, there is no civil cohesion in Northern Ireland. You know, very little of it.
Yeah, well said.
Because of sectarianism, and I don't think it's been fixed since the GFA. Maybe made better. It's been made better because you can't kill people now. You can't commit sectarian murders and assaults as easily as you could in the past. Is really the reason for that, I'd say.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. So ultimately, if you could kind of had a time machine and the version of you right now had to go back to 1999 to vote, would you vote in favour or against?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know, because if you would have asked me if I was born back then and lived through it, you know, I probably would have said yes.
Yeah, you just wanted to.
If you're asking me to go back now, I'd probably still say yes, because I would what the fuck up anything. I'm thinking butterfly effect. If we go back in time, what's it going to be like?
Yeah, of course.
You know, but it's hard to say, because I've met a lot of people who were within the armed struggle and who were out doing operations. They weren't just, you know, intelligence guys or fans. You know, they were out doing the actual work and getting their hands dirty and, you know, taking on that psychological, you know, like any soldier taking on that psychological burden of war.
Yeah.
You know, every soldier will make on, like, you know, oh, I kill 1,000 men and not bat an eye, but then you'll meet one of them who'll say every man bats an eye at it eventually, you know. So it's extreme psychological trauma for someone to take on. And I've met a lot of them who have said that the biggest problem with the IRA campaign coming out of the 90s was the informers. You know, the informers and the lack of training. But the logistical side and the arsenal side, you know, they were the strongest they'd ever been, ever in their history, you know. So you're talking about 200-year history, 150-year history.
No, really well said. Look, I want to commend you and thank you for giving such a balanced perspective on the Good Friday Agreement. You gave me a few arguments for why it's been a good thing, why it's been a not so good thing, and why it hasn't delivered in some fronts. So thanks a lot for that. And look, at the end of the day, all we can do is pray and you know, stay diligent that there will be no conflict like that in the future, and whatever happens in the future of our beautiful island, it'll be peaceful and democratic. That's what I hope for, anyways. Anyway, so kind of shifting on a little bit again from the GFA topic. You know, you've told me before, Base, how you've kind of, you know, you grew up in a sort of in a rough probably area of Belfast, where there was lots of tension. You've had plenty of encounterments in your young yet life with extremist loyalists and stuff like this. Could you just give me and the listeners a little bit of insight into what it was like to grow up in such an environment, and also a bit of insight into the drugs epidemic that we've both talked about at length in the past? Because the drugs epidemic, we must remember, it's not only something that is a problem up north, it's a problem all throughout Ireland. So, but yeah, can you try and tackle both of those as best as you can if you'd feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah, so growing up in the north, especially after I was born the year 2000, so I was born 2 years after 1998, the Good Friday Agreement, okay?
Yeah.
My cousin, who was 6 years older than me, he remembered the soldiers. He remembered what they were like, and I remember him telling me is that they were, like, they stood a bit like you weren't there. Do you know what I mean? They ignored you like you weren't there, even if you were looking at them. And he didn't really remember the time when they were as nasty and evil fuckers as, especially being younger, he just didn't see it. And that was kind of my experience. The watchtowers came down when I was 4 years old. So were the British Army watchtowers were all around the north, on the mountainside overlooking Belfast, because Belfast is in a valley, so there's a mountain on one side and a mountain on the other side. So on the west side of Belfast, there's a big mountain, and they had watchtowers all over it, and they were all taken down in 2004. And the troops were put out of Ireland in 2004. They all went home, the deployed British troops. Growing up in the north, you grow up with a culture that conflict behind you. And even me, I would have grown up being in like very Republican bars, beside men that were doing that and stuff, who were involved back then, and you wouldn't have known, do you know what I mean? It just wasn't talked about. It's not, I explained to you, when you're young, you just think it's normal. Like, I used to think the IRA was just like the army. Do you know what I mean? I used to just think that was our army, the Irish People's Army. People would think of the defence forces as the army. I just grew up thinking that the IRA was just our army. Do you know what I mean? And we lived under different circumstances. We were a people living under occupation or whatever. It sounds stupid to hear that, even though I was so young at the time. But I couldn't help but look at it, because I used to even see police. When police used to show up, they used to be armed police. They used to be heavy geared, You do get this idea when you're growing up here, even though you're not aware of the civil divide, you're aware that you're in a part of Ireland that's doesn't belong to you. You are not in a free part of the country. Like, that was very aware to me as I was growing up as a child. I didn't really know what Protestants were, to be honest with you. I knew that there was these people in Ireland and they were different from us. And then you start to realise and click on to all the British flags about. And I remember being very young and driving through a Protestant village, and they had like a big clock tower. And I remember looking up, and there was a big clock tower on the Union Jack, and I said to my father, young child at the time, said to him, are we in London? Do you know what I mean? And he was like, no, we're not in London.
Wow, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that was my idea of it, So when you grow up and you start actually interacting, you get to be like a teenage age or like a preteen or whatever, and you start to understand, these two different sides. It's really strange to click onto that people are different, and then you start to get older and you start to go into mixed areas. Whether you're in the car and you're driving past and you stop in a shop and you go in and you're wearing a GA top and you're in a loyalist area, or do you know what I mean? You feel the eyes on you. You feel eyes on you. Yeah, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
You feel different. You feel out of place. The civil and sectarian divide. I would say any Southerner to come up to the north and experience it.
I'd love to. Well, I don't know what I love to,
for
but
sure.
Yeah, it's
being that uncomfortable, being Irish and being in a loyalist area, that type of uncomfortableness is something that you should definitely experience. And it's not always bad. It doesn't always, and especially in this day and age, doesn't always mean the worst. I've been in loyalist areas for hours and hours at a time, working and stuff. It's not as bad as it once was, but that culture is definitely still there, and probably on both sides. But it's definitely weird growing up here, because at a certain point you click on to that there's a dust and lemons type of thing. At a certain point, that's when you click on, and it's very strange. It's a very strange realization. When the flag protests were going on in the town, we were walking by it as kids, 13 and all the time.
I remember you telling me about this.
It went on for months. So it went on like a year and a half, and these loyalists started spitting at us and calling us Fenians and Tags. And these are like slur words. But I knew what Fenian meant, I didn't know what Tag meant, so I went home and had to ask my mother, what does that mean?
Oh my god.
And Yeah, and I had to tell her the story, obviously. But she was disgusted, obviously. But she was like, that's just a word. She's obviously heard that word before, growing up in the 80s and the 90s. But she was just saying to me, that's a bad thing to say to Fenians, or bad thing to say to Catholics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we as Irish Republicans are actually, it's actually the biggest praise is to call us a Fenian, because Fenians is actually what, it's the anglicized word for Fianna, which means warrior. So like, it's actually probably the biggest compliment that you could give us is to call us a Fenian, really.
No, 100%. 100%. The Taig word, that actually comes from Irish last names. So where Irish last names in Gaelic at the end of them would have that word at the end of them.
Yeah, correct.
And then sometimes in spelling too.
Yeah, correct. Haunting for
so even when they do insult us, they're always historically accurate, like, so it can't actually.
In fairness to them, we'll give them that bit of credit anyway. To be fair, they are good in that sense.
Yeah, they do. They know their history that they don't like.
They do, certainly. It's a bit like that clip of Jim Allister, where he was on prime time or something, and he said he called the 1916 Rising a foreign grubby rebellion, and then Jim Downs came back to him and said, well, don't you celebrate victory in a foreign country called the Battle of the Boyne? And he was just absolutely had no response to that. It's a little bit like that, So it's nice to have these respectful, healthy altercations with unionists. It's always welcome in my head, anyways.
Well, the funny thing is that you get a lot of unionists who are against the Irish language and stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
But a lot of their top leaders, I think it was Gusty Spence, basically the founder and leader of the UVF in East Belfast at the time of the Troubles. And I think, who was it? Your man Edmund Carson. I think he could speak a bit of Gaelic because he was born in Dublin. So I wouldn't put it past him.
Carson could, yeah.
I wouldn't put it past the guy, especially a guy living in 1920.
Yeah. Well, Carson is actually, and sorry, could the founder of the UVF speak a bit of Gaelic as well? Could it?
Yeah. Gusty Spence could speak Gaelic, like, and
that's interesting. Yeah.
That's what's mental too, because he was in the sales, and the sales were divided down the middle. He was in the sales, and these volunteers would be having conversations in Gaelic, and Gusty Spence would just be listening away for years.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. Wow.
At some point, I think he broke the vocal barrier, and people found out that he could speak Gaelic, and then
that's
he started commuting. He's a really interesting character, because he's the type of people are going to hate me for this, but Don Breen once said that he makes no apologies to any man or God for any life that he's taken.
Yes.
And Gusty Spence would be in the same way, but he had this really weird gentleman's type of persona about him.
Yeah.
He wrote dead IRA women's widows to apologise for the deaths of their husbands and stuff. And
wow, fair play.
There were sincere letters. This is guys involved with like sectarian murders and stuff, with like innocent people. Two at the same time.
Was Gusty? Sorry, please excuse me.
Weird.
Yeah, go on.
He was really weird. He was really weird, is what I'm saying. He had a really weird personality.
Yeah, and excuse my ignorance here, because I should really know this. I'm striving to be a history teacher here. But is Gusty Spence of the War of Independence or the Troubles era? So 1920s or 1960s?
Gusty Spence of the Troubles era.
Okay.
So Gusty Spence was the one who.
I thought so. All right. Yeah.
He actually announced the Loyalist ceasefire. So he did.
Okay.
Gusty Spence announced the Loyalist ceasefire. He announced the first bit of trouble from the Loyalists when the conflict broke out, and he was the one to announce their ceasefire. I'll just share this to the screen. This is Gusty Spence. So this is him. This is one of the statements. This is him at the time of one of the statements he released for the UVF. So they were releasing a statement at this point saying that they were going to continue action or whatever. I can't remember the full thing, but they basically rejected government.
Orders.
It was. I have to actually rewatch that interview, but there he is. The funny thing about Gusty Spence is he's a very Irish-looking man.
He is, isn't he? Yeah, he is. Even I'm showing this photo here. He nearly looks like he's in the IRA. He's like an IRA commandant or something. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of my grandfather. My grandfather had a very thick, old Ulster man's accent, a lot like Ian Paisley, like that type of old Ulster accent. It doesn't really exist anymore. that
That
old accent.
that
But
photo
you
of him
know,
there with the sunglasses, he genuinely looks like an IRA commandant or something. You know what I mean?
yeah, what's him in his UVF gear? The UVF had
Yeah,
some weird fucking uniforms. Like
yeah,
it was always sort of a mismatch of retro 70s type of. I don't know what, like, you know, their wardrobe design was never really on point. What it was kind
yeah.
of, there's one criticism I have to give them. Like, he
Yeah,
looks like, who does he look like? He looks like some Middle Eastern commandant in
he
this
does
photo. Like, he
actually.
does, you know
Yeah,
what
he
I mean?
does. Yeah,
He
yeah,
looks like a commander in the Iraqi army there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, weird guy. Well, another weird guy. He would
That's
have been in
fascinating.
the long cast on the loyalist side when Jay Adams and Hughes and all were there. And
Yeah,
yeah, he was a really weird dude. There he is. There. This is the photo I was looking for. So this is him at the. This is when they got together and they said, right, you know, we've called the ceased all operations. That was sometime in the 90s, like
yeah.
of the 2000s, that they were like, right, yeah, just that we all have to disband, you know, all Good Friday Agreement ahead, because before that, the loyalists were against the Good Friday Agreement completely.
Yeah,
So
true.
you think they would have wanted it to happen, but they didn't want it to go down.
Of course, and they never will call it the Good Friday. It's always the Belfast Agreement. This is the Belfast Agreement. This is what it's called. So yeah, they're very
Yeah,
much.
which is arbitrary, because no matter what you call it, like, you know what I mean, you call it whatever you want, you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
It,
absolutely. Anglo-Irish
for now,
Agreement.
call the Belfast Agreement, call it, yeah, Anglo-Irish Agreement, call
Yeah,
it whatever you want. That's what it is.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
that's loyalist politics. Like, you know, I do speak to a lot of unionists, but
Mm.
I don't think a lot of unionists, you know, they'll change their tune in order to keep their politics the way it's been for the last 100 years. You know, they'll change their tune at any point. You know, they'll make up any argument will do to keep the union in place. That's their mentality. Like,
Mm. Absolutely. Look, some really fascinating insight, and look, you briefly touched on Edward Carson there as well. Edward Carson's a really interesting character because he sort of Carson, you know, I think Carson is, you know, probably my favorite unionist in history, I would say. Of course, he did lots of stuff that I didn't like, but I'll always have a level of respect for him due to one of his main quotes, where he said, "It's only for Ireland that I'm in politics." So, sort of, when I look at a guy like Carson, I kind of think, um, you know, whilst I fundamentally disagree with his stance on the union, I do believe that he's a person who genuinely had Ireland's best interests at heart, not Britain's, not anyone else's, Ireland's. So, you know, I'll always share a small element of respect for him for that. Like, um, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had a bit of Gaeilge as well, being from born in Dublin and stuff. Um, yeah, even though Dublin are full of Jack Eanes, but and he was like probably the leader of that. But anyway, that's a different topic. But look, so Base, thanks very much for that insight into GFA. So, and growing up in Belfast as well. You know,
well, see the one thing I can say there about on your quote, and I
yeah,
literally had to look it up there because I had to quote Sun Tzu, but I hate quoting Sun Tzu because he didn't talk like a normal person. He talked like a Chinese man from the Confucius period. So,
okay, yeah,
he said, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle.
well,
And that's
yeah,
what Sun Tzu said. He wrote The Art of War. So that's if now, like I said, he said that in a very old timey way, but essentially what he said is know your enemy and know your own capabilities.
yeah.
Um,
It's good quote.
and if even if you win, you know you'll lose because you failed to understand your enemy before you
Really well
defeated them.
said. Yeah, really well said. Absolutely. Okay, yeah. So, another quote from Carson, and this was post, I think, the 1918 elections or something, where obviously Sinn Féin got a resounding vote all across Ireland, north to south, in favour of Republican Sinn Féin. And Carson said, "What a fool I was! All I was a pawn for the Conservative Tory government. What basically me." myself and Ulster were a pawn to get the Tory government into power. What a fool I was. That's a really interesting quote as well. It just shows that once again, Carson was seen as a bit like Charles Stuart Parnell in the 1880s was seen as the uncrowned king of Ireland. Carson, despite being a Dubliner, a Jackie, was seen as the uncrowned king of Ulster. So like, look, he's obviously we're probably going to not like more of what we like with him, but he's no doubt he's a fascinating character. Based one topic that as soon as I wanted to have you on, and I wanted to make sure you were one of my first guests because you're such a gent. But I wanted to talk about the drugs epidemic and your
Yes,
experience of
yes,
it.
yes, yes,
Uh,
yes, yes, 100%,
and it's such a nationwide
100%.
issue. I'm just gonna, to be
Yes.
honest, I might just go on mute here and let you just have the floor for
No,
the next
we'll
five,
jump
ten
in there.
minutes.
We'll have a back and forth, right? So
Okay,
I'll share my screen here again.
no worries.
Um,
Yeah,
I'll give you. See, the next time you're doing one of these things, man, I'll go on and I'll FaceTime you and I'll set it up so you can just go on and do this like the way I'm doing it. And you can record it.
yeah.
See if you have this wee app on every Windows app has it, snipping tool. You can record just the whole screen in your audio. It's great, so it is.
That's fantastic
Up
because
to
I
an
actually
hour,
am.
every computer has it. Like,
My computer is
that's what I use.
It's a Chromebook as well. So Jesus, brilliant. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll do more podcasts in the future, maybe just videos. So like absolutely, yeah. Thanks for that. So do you want me to share your screen now to the audience?
Yeah.
To the listeners.
I'm going to share my screen here just in 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm just going to look up something here for you. So.
By the way, I don't know if you're interested, but Real Madrid 0, Bayern 0 at the moment, and so that's going to be going to extra time. Just have this on the background. Mark Goldbridge on the background. I have.
I like sports when I'm away in sunny countries.
Yeah, that's fair. That is, yeah. It definitely hits a bit harder in sun. Alright, I'll give you that. Even though at the moment,
like, listen, I just see when it's fall weather. I just get, what I mean.
What's the weather like where you're living now? It's absolutely brilliant down here in Cork at the moment, like.
Oh, I'm sure it is, John. You know what? I'm sure Cork's lovely. I'm sure Cork's smashing. I've always actually wanted to go to Cork because I know that's the best place in Ireland to get sun.
It probably is, yeah.
Like, it's like Irish Florida, Cork.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
That's a good. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, it's not sunny all the time. It's only the last week. It's been lovely.
When
but
you get the sun, it's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. It is literally like Florida or Santa Panza or something when we get it. It's really good. Yeah, it always seems to be whenever you go on holidays as well. It gets really nice. Whenever people go on holidays, they'll come back and you'll say, "Oh Jesus, the weather was class when you were away. Oh, you took it with you," and all this kind of crack. So I like, yeah. No, it probably is. You're right. Cork probably is the best place for weather in Ireland, but it's like picking. It's like picking a piece of toilet paper out of a toilet full of shite. Like, it's not a great pick, but it is probably the best of there. Like, you know what I mean?
Here, listen, I've tried looking it up, but after that wee chat of shit, I tell you what, I can't find it. So Google just doesn't work for me anymore.
That's no worries. That's fine.
If maybe you can find it, but essentially what it is, it's the rates of people who do drugs in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
And it's everyday society. Like, it's not just heroin junkies. Like, you have cocaine, so everybody does that in Northern Ireland. Like, and everybody does that in the Republic. Like, all levels of society would do that. So literally name a person or a type of person, and I'll tell you whether or not they would do it.
A lawyer, a teacher.
Yeah.
A dentist.
Dentist, of course.
A vet, a doctor.
The doctor, school wife, housewife, husband.
Yeah, you name it.
You name it, you'll have it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, look. I can tell a little story of my knowledge in it. Of there was a young fella who was. I think I told you about this story before, but he was rising up the ranks. Absolutely gifted footballer, Gaelic footballer from Kildare. And he was rising up the ranks. He was playing he actually got into the county minor panel, and he played a few games for Kildare. Played really well. They had a final that got all the way to Crow Park and stuff, and he was absolutely flying it. But then one evening, at the age 17, him and his friends were a bit sick of drinking, of going in to, going into a forest or whatever and having a few cans. They got sick of that, so they decided they needed to take it up a notch and try cocaine. And he got absolutely hooked on it. This was in the midst of his leaving cert year, so they tried it a few times again between then and nights out and stuff. Then he on his leaving cert 6 year holiday, he went away and had a load once again, of cocaine. So it just shows. And then he had real battles. He was a cocaine addict from age 17 up to about 19 or 20, and he was getting apprenticeships after his leaving and stuff, but he just wasn't able to stick to them because he was too like going through withdrawals or through, and obviously he was nowhere near good enough to be playing for Kildare again. And he said age 20 he went to his nearest river and basically tossed a coin of whether or not he would take his own life. Luckily, somebody got there or something before he did and kind of saved him. And after that, he genuinely committed to getting clean, getting sober. And thanks be to God, since then he's had some success. 5 years later, he's a good mechanic or something. He was working and applying his trade, and he managed to beat cocaine addiction. Thanks be to God. But it just shows how we potentially lost a really great footballer there for Kildare to drugs. He'd be in his prime now. He's 26 years of age. So that's just an example of a little place like Kildare. I can only imagine what it's like up north with all the paramilitaries around the place who basically make their living off of it, So I suppose, yeah, that's my little bit of insight base. But I think you have a lot more knowledge than me, so the floor is yours. But insight me into sort of the psychology of the drug scene up north and anything down south as well.
Um, it's not in the north. There is paramilitaries who do it, but there's not as many of them as people make it out to be. You can make the argument that some of them on a logistical level, which quite possibly maybe many of them are. I wouldn't know anything about it, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't. There is people investigate that. You can go on. There's channels like Crime World, and Crime World did a interview with Richard Raw. He was a former backup man, and he knew Freddie Scappaticci, and he was investigating that, and he was on explaining the Freddie Scappaticci case to him. So it's a good channel, but usually what you find is that it's a problem you can't get, it's not an issue that you can get rid of, like whether one person or one group is doing it or a group of individuals are doing it, it doesn't matter. It's $1 million industry, whether the Irishmen are doing it or the Irishmen aren't doing it. Do you know what I mean? They'll get someone else to do it who's not from here, which is the unfortunate part of it. It's pretty fact up,
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
It's pretty fact up business, but there's definitely a big human cost that comes from that. All that stuff. Give us just 1 second there. I'm trying to get my thing on full screen here.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Right. No, but I'm trying to be able to explain it the best way, because honestly, it's kind of hard to talk about these things there because I don't want to be taken out of context as well. But it's on, like I said, it's on all levels of society. So it's not like you're going to get rid of, even if you get rid of major traffickers to bring it into Ireland, it doesn't matter, because some guy can just go online and get a telegram. Do you know what I mean? Or they'll get it on Discord, even some Discord channels let you get it, and you can get loads of different places online, and the dark web if you wanted to take that extra step. Do you know? It doesn't matter anymore. See whether guys are bringing it in on friggin' boats and through fucking submarines like what the Kinahans do. and then people get it distributed there. It doesn't matter. See, if you get rid of all that, you're going to have to start checking everybody's post. The post the
Mm.
post is compromised. I'd hate to break it to people, but the post is compromised.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
all post services around the world, so it's not. It's you can't stop. You can't stop it, unfortunately.
yeah. Mm.
I don't know about decriminalising it, because then you're just giving them no way to be able to fight gangs and continue to sell it. But something needs to be a national crisis at the very least. Because I reckon if you took all the cocaine out of Ireland in a single day, for the weekend following that, nobody would be in work.
Mm.
People
Yeah.
would be fucked off. I'm not even joking. People would be fucked off and upset, because people get
Withdrawal
like
symptoms.
your friend, it ruined his life. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people who've been doing cocaine for like 30, 40 years, John.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
absolutely.
And they're like people's dads and people's respected members of society. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just can't. It's just such a normal thing for people to do in Ireland.
Mm.
And you're only 18, maybe you haven't seen it yet fully.
Oh no,
But
that's why I'm asking you. Like, yeah, no, yeah.
yeah, let me tell you, try your best to stay away from it. But it's literally like you'll be sitting there one day and you'll be having a drink, or you'll be at a festival and you'll see some guy's dad who's on it, and a bunch of other
Oh,
dads.
I've
People
like
you know.
load. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna name any names, like, but
Yeah, don't name any names, but
there,
you may have seen something like that already.
I have, yeah. I've like
Even there.
loads of people my age have
Yeah.
tried it, and yeah, it's crazy. Like, yeah.
So listen,
Yeah.
it's every aspect of society. So if you took it all away in one night, people are just gonna be like fucked off with that. Like,
Well, I
you know
mean,
what I
and
mean?
we withdrawal symptoms are a huge thing as well. You know, they can kill people as well. So, absolutely.
Beyond the withdrawals, I think that people would like the subculture in Ireland and the party culture in Ireland makes up a massive majority of society. So it would just be another thing people are fucked off about.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. I don't know how to deal with it. Look at South America. Latin America's been trying to deal. That's where it comes from. Latin America, Colombia. Colombia at this point has basically said, yeah, go ahead. Everybody can do cocaine. Do you know? At this point, society-wise, that's the way they are. There's not that much of a taboo in Colombia anymore. It used to be a taboo in the 90s, and drugs and what they'll do to you. But it got to just a certain point where many places, it's just like, oh, fucking go ahead. Same as in America, same as here and many other places.
Yeah.
It's been around for so long now.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell do you even get rid of it? Like, it's been around since. I think cocaine was first introduced now, like in the 80s. It's kind of hard to imagine it around when the Troubles was going on, but certainly in Dublin, like, it was around. In America, it's been around since like the 1930s. Like Al Capone was a terrible cocaine addict.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
He's not the best example for cocaine addiction, like.
It's an interesting one, yeah.
He went mad, so he did. He actually lost his mind. But it's been around for ages. So how the hell do you get rid of it?
I know.
But the thing about a lot of political parties now is that they don't even address it.
No, it's not worth their time.
Address how do you sort it out?
Yeah.
It's just something that they'll say that they'll sort out, but they don't.
Do you reckon that there's politicians in Dáil Éireann and are storming, sniffing a line before they go into Congress to
100%
discuss business?
That's what I mean, man. It's on every level of society.
Yeah.
Like, I reckon if we took every person in Ireland and put them on a lie detector test, like the best lie detector test ever, right?
Yeah.
And made them do it, like Pol Pot style, just picked every fucker up in the whole island. Every man, woman, child, pensioner, everybody, priest, nun, whatever, lie detector testing them. Have you ever tried cocaine? I reckon we'll come back to the 60-70% of the island, of the whole island, saying that they tried it.
Interesting. Okay, before we move on to our last couple of topics, do you want to say anything else in the drug scene, or you said your piece?
No, I think I've said the piece.
Fair enough.
It's a major problem, but like it's not something that you can you can even fix.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
I think the much more serious drugs like heroin and stuff, you know, we should be going after first of all.
Probably, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the cocaine problem, like, it's just how do you fix that?
It's
Like, do you
just
know what I
too
mean? Because it is
intertwined into
such a
society, like, yeah.
it is such a widely dispersed drug. Like, it's the most popular one in the entire world. Like, how do you even get rid of it? Like I said earlier, how do you even get rid of that? Like, you know what I mean?
I know. No, I
You're
understand where you're coming
ultimately
from.
wasting your time. You
Look,
know,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
best thing you do is probably offer services to people who are struggling with that type of addiction. Like.
Do you know what? That's a great solution. That's a really good solution. And look, I'm sure that they're out there, like, but we need to do a better job at strengthening these services because it's something that I don't envy anyone going through it, and I pray that they get over it, like, you know. Yeah, so look, based, I'll be giving your handles another shout out at the end of the video. You can give him a proper one, but follow Ryan at BASEDIrishRepublican on X, and if you want to talk, he's in spaces pretty much every night, and I'm sure if you've any questions regarding the drug scene or anything else, he'll answer them. So, we're going to go on to the end of the kind of podcast now, if you're happy enough, unless you want to bring anything else up. And what I did this last week with Eamon as well, where I asked him two questions. One of them is completely plagiarized from True Geordie podcast, but the other one is sort of one I've come up with myself that I'm going to try and model for all my podcasts. So, before I ask them, is there anything you'd like to just say, I suppose, to the listeners, or will we just get straight into the questions because they're long enough, like?
No, get these questions.
Brilliant. So, number one, where is your favourite location in Ireland?
Right.
Sorry, was there a bit of Wi-Fi there, disconnection? Did you hear that, no? Hello?
There must have been. It's
Yeah. Yeah, it said my Wi-Fi was down there as well.
Hello, it's Derry. Can you hear me?
I hear you now, yeah. Hear you perfectly. Derry's your favourite, is it?
It's dead on. It's
good choice.
Derry. Derry's the best place in Ireland, hands down.
I actually have a good friend who's looking to become a physiotherapist, and he's gonna go and do his studies in Derry and live in Derry rather than stay down here in Cork or go Limerick or somewhere because it's just too expensive. And he loves the city of Derry. He wants to experience it properly. So all the best to him. If you're watching, buddy, you know who you are.
Unbelievable place.
Yeah, I've never actually been. I'd love to visit. Yeah.
I would go with John, honestly. See any excuse I can go to Derry. It's amazing. It is, honestly.
Is this Derry County or Derry City specifically?
Derry City specifically.
Yeah.
All of Derry County is lovely.
Yeah.
But Derry City specifically, it is amazing.
Wow.
You know, it is a beautiful place. Like,
so if you had to pick
all the the parade stuff and all that, even when all the trouble that. Even when it does kick off with there, it's still lovely. It's still great this summer. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's very European, so like you'll be walking down the old. It's surrounded by a wall. Derry is a very small place and it's got hills, and it's one of them places. It's like going to Amsterdam. See, all it needs is cannabis shops or something like that there, and you swear to God you'd be in the Netherlands. It is that nice.
I'd love to go there.
It's a lovely place.
It sounds absolutely class.
Yeah. You would spend 3 or 4 days walking around Derry if you hadn't been in it, just because it's so lovely.
Sounds classy.
And it's cheap. They're right. It's cheap. See, for me living in Belfast, it's cheaper than being in Belfast. We're going out buying food and pints. I said to her, if we had our money and lived here, we'd be going out for food every fucking night because it's the beers, the food, everything's so cheap. For some, I don't know why. They're wizards. I don't know what they're doing. Hopefully, they're not paying tax.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why
that's our ultimate weapon in the north. It's not paying tax.
Yeah, and this is why my friend is sort of attracted to there as well, because it's much cheaper and all this kind of crack. So yeah, no, it's
don't start me because you're going to make me want to move to Derry again. I was going to move to Derry twice.
Look, maybe that's something you can aim to in the future. They say as well the sort of the Brits, when they had their real grasp on Ireland after the Act of Union and stuff, and when they were first colonising Ireland, that it was really the east of Ireland that got heavily affected by British rule, whereas the west sort of kept its Irish, Gaelic, Gaeilge roots. That's why in like West Cork, in Galway, in West Kerry, you see so much whale tucks around the place, because sort of South Waterford as well, because these were the areas of Ireland that weren't really as heavily colonised. Whereas if you go to, like, obviously the northeast is so heavily unionist. Really, Dublin, we call them Jackeens for a reason. They're like, their accents are half British in Dublin, like, and the way some of them go on, you know what I mean. South Dubliners
Yeah, they say
South Dubliners are complete West Brits,
it's the
like.
South Dubliners, don't they?
Yeah,
And have the accents like that.
they do, like, they're complete,
Yeah.
just, North Dubliners, to be fair, are kind of the rebels, but, like, so, but anyway, my point is that Derry is very much part of that Western bloc that was never really, like, well, it did feel the bad effects of colonization, obviously, probably more so, but they weren't as affected by British identity, other than sort of the east side of Derry, maybe northeast side of Derry, but definitely a lot of Derry City, most of Derry County Council, it always declared their allegiances to the Irish Republic, and hasn't really lost too much of their Gaelic roots. So and County Tyrone is very similar in that sense as well. So yeah, look, that's a really good choice, and Derry is somewhere I'd love to visit myself, and I'm sure I will in the not so far future.
Well, let us know when you're going, and I'll get you to meet up with someone that you can go talk to.
Yeah, great idea.
Work someone in the centres, and if you go with you or someone else, fire them 20 quid each, or I think it's like 50 quid or whatever. I don't know how much it is. He doesn't really put a price on it,
Okay.
And we'll go and meet him, and he may not even charge you if he really likes it.
That'd be great, yeah.
I shouldn't even be telling you, fuck's sake, I'm an asshole, like, to be honest with you. But go into the place and talk to them anyway.
Interesting.
And
I will.
He'll go around, he'll show you everything,
Yeah.
and say, and enough said. But
yeah, that might be a nice weekend away now when I'm done my leaving. Just head up to Derry, put the feet up, meet up with a few people. Like,
yeah, it is absurdly nice compared to Belfast. Like,
Yeah.
They say that it's rough and stuff. Like, there is tough guys that walk about Derry, like, but ultimately, like, Derry is really small town energy. Like, it's a city, yeah, it is city like, but it's something else. Like, it really is something else when you go there.
Yeah.
If anything, it needs a bit more development. It's slowly getting that. That's the only thing it needs, is a wee bit more development. But nobody really wants to develop the area, like, because it'd be a fucking powerhouse.
Absolutely. I know. I see what you're saying, 100%.
Well, sure, it's right there by the North Atlantic. Like, it may even be better than see if Derry was a developed city, or even like way somewhere in Donegal was just a touch more developed. The access to the North Atlantic Sea in order to for anything, for just the docks and shipping and fishing and stuff, like, it would be terrific. Like,
well, we haven't really touched so much in unity today, but I think this would be one of the best things Irish unity would bring. Would be that Derry, like cities like Derry, would finally get the attention and the respect they deserve. We'd develop University of Derry and make it just a more attractive place for tourists to go. Only thing is, it might make it more expensive, which wouldn't be a good thing. But I think that would be a really good thing of getting Derry done. I think that's why unity would benefit places and cities like Derry so much. But
do you know what I like? This is what's going to make people think I'm a communist again, right? Do you know what I like about Cuba?
Yeah.
Do you know what I like about Cuba, right? See if you're a tourist and you go there, and there's a few other countries that are like this. It's you get tourist tax on everything you buy. So you go and buy like a bottle of whiskey or whatever. It's like, it'd be less than $1. Like, it would be like 40 cents for a bottle of rum or something. It'd be like 18 cents for a citizen, like 40 cents for you, right, as a tourist.
Wow. Wow, yeah. That's quite a bargain, isn't it, to be fair? Yeah. Interesting. Okay, look, fantastic answer, Derry, and you've really sold the prospect for me as well, going there. Maybe we'll go up and have a few pints there, the two of us, sometime or something, who knows. But
Derry's class, man. Like, seriously, you would get lost in Derry.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to visit.
It is lovely.
And it's your favourite place.
It's only 9 minutes away from the border in a car. Never forget that. Like.
Yeah, I mean, that's handy too. Yeah, I know it's close enough to the south as well. Like, definitely more so than somewhere like Down or Antrim would be. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Belfast, like, it's not anywhere near the border. See, when you're
No.
in Derry City, right, and you're on them walls where Derry girls and all shop,
Yeah.
and you're looking across the border, you're looking across over at Donegal and the nice lands against the Donegal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Literally. Yeah.
it's a nuts feeling. You're
Yeah.
like, it's like, as if you're from Belfast, you're like, what the fuck? Like, it's just freedom's right over that hill.
Yeah.
Just right over that
Well,
horizon.
there's another
The
lovely
Republic,
fella.
like, it's nuts.
There's another lovely fella on Twitter, and I don't know, is he listening? He probably isn't, to be honest, but if he is, shout out to him and follow him. South Derry Republican. He's got wealth of knowledge on Troubles history and IRA history and stuff, but I'd love to have him on the podcast someday and have a good chat with him, and I'm sure he'd give lots of insight into the best places in Derry and stuff as well, which would be great to hear, you know. Do you know the fella I'm alluding to, you do?
Yeah, South Derry. South Derry's dead on.
Yeah, yeah.
He's pretty cool. Yeah,
He is a cool guy, yeah.
I liked his account because he chirps in every now and then with comments under tweets or whatever, but he mostly just like does videos or pictures or memorial posts, like, which
That's
is
right, yeah. It's cool, like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. Like, I like kind of like other informational, like, my account's very much more casual, like my opinions.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll tend
absolutely.
to see something interesting, I'll go up, or I'll retweet guys like him or whatever.
Absolutely. I completely agree with
something
you.
I'll fire it up, but his account, he goes into hyper detail about all of it, like, which
Completely
is very
agree.
interesting.
Yeah, you're dead on.
Derry is very much like that, though. It's like it's 70%. It is 70% Catholic
Yeah,
city
yeah,
area, and there's that West Bank that is the mostly loyalist part. And I walked into it and I had a look around it, with somebody giving me a tour around it, and telling me about the area and explaining the history of the place. And it is very interesting. But when you're in Derry, especially, it's weird because you're in a place that is a very Irish city. Derry
yeah.
is, unlike Belfast, it
Completely.
is a very Irish place when you're there.
Absolutely, it
Like
is.
in Belfast,
Yeah.
you wouldn't feel it as much, but
Well,
in
like,
Derry, you would feel it very Irish.
by right, Derry and Tyrone and Fermanagh should all be parts of the Irish Republic, because in 1922 they overwhelmingly declared their allegiances to the Republic, but it was actually James Craig that stopped it. Like, I was giving my bit of respect for Carson earlier. James Craig would be someone I have absolutely zero time for. I think he was nothing but a little undemocratic thug, you know. And if not for James Craig, perhaps those three counties would be part of the Irish Republic today, because at the time they overwhelmingly declared their allegiances to the Irish Republic, to the Free State. So, but look, what happened, and we just have to build what we have now. You know what I mean? Are you still there, Based? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
there. You had a few connection problems there, sorry.
I was, yeah, my
But I
fault.
heard some of it. I heard
Yeah.
some of that, and you know what it is that you're very right that it was a unionist majority set up out of 6 counties, when them counties that you mentioned, Fermanagh, Tyrone, and Derry,
Yeah.
they were all majority nationalist anyway. It was
Yes,
just
they were.
a substantial proportion of that population interspersed were Protestants as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, they were the three counties. Then also you have South Armagh, South Down, arguably a bit of Antrim. Like, pretty much every single county has a case. Like,
it's North Antrim. Like, Antrim's the same thing with Derry, though, because there's people lived, see, Protestants and Catholics prior to 1969. Other in Belfast along the shipyards. That's where it was. That's where the main trouble kicked off from the Troubles, was the loyalists on the shipyards working on Harlan and WEF, is what they say.
yeah,
And that's when the first bit of true sectarianism really started to hit the page, was the Trouble. And I'm talking about the newspaper page all the way back then, in 1895, 1920, 1930, 1940, 1950s, like, they were given, Catholics weren't given death jobs. Like, that was only some of the only jobs Catholics can get. But
that's correct. Yeah.
if they ever did get into the rail yards, they were given death jobs on that. and it was fucked up. Like, see Harland and Wolff, like there needs to be a big, massive spotlight expose on Harland and Wolff and what
Yeah.
happened in there in the past, because it's mental. Everybody
Well,
has a story about how they nearly died or how their friend died, Harland and Wolff.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
frigged up.
Well, I made a
Uh,
statement on Twitter one time, and
well,
sorry, Biss, but it got a lot of heat from loyalists. But I said that there was an ethnic cleansing of Irish nationalists in the north between 1922 and 1924, so kind of the Civil War era, and then after 1924, ethnic cleansing got relegated to discrimination. As I say, lots of heat from loyalists on this, saying this is not true. But I think what you referred to there, the jobs, the issues of gerrymandering was another thing. I think I don't think there's much argument. The reason I say there's an ethnic cleansing between 22 and 24 is because like basically due to the Civil War, Northern nationalists or Catholics were now susceptible to being killed by not only loyalist paramilitaries like the UVF, not only the British Army, but also now the National Army, the Green and Tans, the pro-treaty IRA. Loyalists or Irish nationalists were now susceptible to being killed by them, especially after Michael Collins was killed, because Michael Collins was the only man who like brought aid to them after partition and stuff. So that's why I say, you know, you say that 70% of Derry was nationalist. At the time, it was probably 90%, and it got trimmed down over the years due to the Protestant, unionist dominated Northern Irish state. So it probably went from 70% now, and there probably was a time where it was 80, maybe 90%. So yeah, and I will say there was probably an ethnic cleansing down south as well, in the Republican state of British Protestants, which is wrong, and I don't stand for any of that either. So it's a very interesting historical debate. But I'm going to let you say your piece based. I'll ask you the final question, which is a bit of a heavy one, and we'll probably wrap this shit up then after. So drive on, buddy.
yeah, you're dead on there. Like, really, I agree with you. But it's not working in their favour anymore, because there's only them
No,
two
no.
constituency regions, that North Antrim and South Down is all the DUP and Major Loyalism have left.
Yeah.
Them two wee regions. That's all they have left in the top right corner. You literally see them getting pushed into the ocean, which is kind of maybe off colour to say, getting pushed into the ocean, but that's what it looks like, on the census sort of data there from the, not census data, but the from the poll. We were talking about the way Derry is now. Like, Derry's sort of green now, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter anymore, So they're getting pushed out into South Down. And I remember being on Space, and I was listening away in the background, and they were talking about how they were scared that a unionist wasn't going to get the seat. Do you know what I mean? So they were going to elect a guy who was living in England, who's not from Northern Ireland, who's never lived here, who doesn't live here.
Yeah.
To go elect for a seat in South Down, because that's all they had. And they were arguing about it. And
It's interesting.
that's what the state unionism has got. Like it's barely holding on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
At any moment, you could see it, acts of resistance out of them, like they've said in the past, very recently. In the past, not too long ago.
Absolutely. No, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay, look, we'll get off I'm just going to ask my final question now, and thanks for all your very good rationale on why Derry is your favourite place in Ireland. But based Irish Republican, a bit of a heavy one. Well, Eamon told me this isn't a heavy question. He said it was an easy one to answer. But so maybe you'll agree or maybe you won't. But how would you like to be remembered?
That's a good question. Hopefully I'm not remembered, only really remembered by family. I'll put it that way.
Fair enough, yeah.
If I go down the history as the guy who got no credit, but equally got no blame, I'll be happy enough.
Fair.
I'm just here play my part. That's it. I don't need to go down in any history book. Thank you very much.
Fair play. I respect that. I respect that.
Not really looking to see the 72 virgins. You know, that way.
I respect that. Yeah, no, I do respect that. And look, before we end the podcast, so do you want to link any of your socials, your YouTube channel or anything, or your X?
Yeah, if you just search Based Irish Rebel at Based Irish Rebel,
Yeah.
it'll come up on
That's
YouTube or
YouTube.
X.
Yeah.
And then there's links to them on either one of them.
I'll be leaving a link in the description anyway to both, lads. So if you've liked this conversation and you've enjoyed it, which I hope you have, you can go to the link in the description and follow Based. Also, look, just to the viewers, a little apology for how the camera work was a little bit shuffly today. I was having some trouble with my battery. It's only down to about 20% now, so I was just trying to adjust that. Obviously, one or two times Based was kind enough to give like share his screen and show information, so I was just doing that. So if it got a bit messy, I apologize. You know, as I go on with this, hopefully the technology will get better and I won't just be recording off my iPhone, you know. That's with the help of God, that's hopefully what will be happening as we move in the future.
I'll show you. I can try to show you afterwards. You know, you set up the snipping tool.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, like
it's pretty easy.
A little spoiler alert for the viewers. Like, I'm looking to get Celtic clothing on next week, and yeah, I mean, if we could get better organized with Celtic, that'd be great, because that man has a wealth of knowledge, you know. So, Jesus, people, I'm like Patrick Keelty now. I'm only getting Northerners onto the show. I have to get some I have to get some Southerners now on soon. Like, but yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so you can show me that now when we're done. But Based, it's been an absolute pleasure, Mhór. Gurv Mila Maigut, Mila Buikas, that means thank you very much, God bless. Well, it just means thank you very much, actually, but God bless as well, Based, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
God bless, John. Thank you very much, man.
God bless.